trademarkers in Texas be like, I'm gonna copyright that art type of shit. Chapter 2 of the DAO. And don't fart on live, because if you fart on live, then it's all over, right? The whole fucking education system will just fall apart. So Pluto being in the 11th house in just the alignment, because like in the March 21st equinox, there was a certain calibration where there was like an equal setting between like, you know, the sun and the earth, right? So within the sun and the earth, there was like some type of equal setting within the sun having just a quote unquote random alignment, end quote, with the earth, right? There's a certain type of, because we're trying to understand individually, subjectively, like where we're at, right? Like where are we at in our subjective life, right? Because that's the only thing that matters. And if people don't understand that about each other, then they'll be intellectually lost, right? There'll be like a misalignment within like there'll be a misalignment within just like people misunderstanding what? That everyone knows in their own subjective way. So chapter 2 of the DAO, when everyone knows beauty is beauty, this is bad. When everyone knows good is good, this is not good. Not intellectually correct, right? So being and non-being produce each other. You know, the dream and without the dream, they make a particular dream. So it's a different nuance of making yourself, right? Because the whole like solar plexus mutation of like just energy evolution of you with and without AI, most respectively is, it's about you're making yourself in the matrix, right? There's a different soul matrix that we're newly understanding aside from the AI. So that's just a friendly reminder, right? So for me to paraphrase it as a friendly reminder, the intention is really there, because everything I say that's like condescending, it's really just to say like the resonance is known, right? Regardless of what I tell you, some people will just naturally hate you, right? So how do we fill out those naturally like just distorted oppositions, right? Because this is advanced conflict resolution. Why is it advanced conflict resolution? Because it's seeing on the sociological level why the psychology of wars start with, right? Why is there a psychology of starting war? And there's a whole different psychology from just normie educational psychology, which is what? Aside from normie educational psychology is engaging in war psychology. So those are two totally different contexts of psychology itself, right? And I've been writing underground since 2012. So if anybody wants to like pretend they want to try to debate me, that I've already like made a request like literally like 5 years ago, around that like ballpark of just like, okay, this is like, I have the notes where like I'm already at that stage where I'm like, I've actually transcended it, just to be real with myself. It's like there is like there's just a mishap within the alignment of the surface level system, and that's not good, that's not bad. And what that means is like people don't follow up on requests standardly. It's just a weird matrix gimmick facade. What is a matrix gimmick facade? It's saying that we're just using the tech for like a particular type of like a particular type of selfish context, not good, not bad, but just understanding a deeper psychology of just like, there's a lack of like a bigger picture cooperation. And if there's a lack of a bigger picture cooperation, that's the individual's fault, because this is real spiritual science. This is understanding even the like the old school, like, you know, the Krishna literature, right? In like the early 80s of just the standardness of like, now that 80s spirituality, not just the Krishna consciousness, like just the whole Hinduism and in its own totalness in the 1980s. What do I mean? What am I talking about? In the 1980s, there was a circulation of particular knowledge that they used to entertain themselves and sustain themselves, because within the entertainment, it's some type of sustainment, right? We're going through life to like gnaw on something psychologically, right? So if we're gnawing on something psychologically, then that's a need, right? There's some type of need being jimmied or like, you know, McGlivered or whatever, or Mashlivered or McPlivered or Matrivered or Matrevers or like, you know, Flibbers or McFlubbers or McFletchers or like, you know, Mr. Fire Axe, you know, or like, you know, just like there's camps everywhere in the States, right? So chapter 2 is and it's like obviously like New York firefighters are different from, you know, Arizona firefighters and LA firefighters and Cali firefighters. So there's a difference between firefighters, right? Because like I've already traveled like, you know, the states, right, in my own way, and within that like many different cities that I've seen, and I'm just saying it generally is like every city has a different like, you know, aura to it, right? So since every city has a different aura, everyone is either unconsciously dealing with moon stuff they don't even know, because the moon, and everyone's either newly consciously dealing with the moon stuff, because chapter 2 of the Tao, this is one of the first Tuesdays of the astrological first new moon series of 6 and 12, based on the moon cycle having like, you know, based on predecessor knowledge and of like how they're calibrating the solar system to have 2 significant moon cycles of 6 months periods, right? So within those 2 6-month periods, there's denominations within 2 of the 6s, which is what? Which is the compound number of 111 6 ones, right? Because there's 6 months in 1 6-month cycle, right? So since there's 1 6 months in 1 6-month cycle, where the denominations are 1 1 1 1 1 1, so 6 ones, right? Standardly, because obviously you'll hear these quote unquote angelic, you know, number templates respectively, and like it somewhere in the soul it will sound familiar, right? It's like, I know this, right? I know this. Like I'm a different energy being of, you know, the original source gods, and now they're like, we're working with them to fix our karma, you know, because spirit, we have to have a particular belief that spirit and quote unquote God end quote, and obviously maybe updating that word, they're helping us fix our karma, right? And if we don't look on that bright side, then we won't live that reality, because some of the percentage of the reality is like is saying some of the percentage of the reality is saying whatever you believe and whatever you think, that manifests as a reality. And I've spoken on that particular niche topic like long time ago, but like I'm just saying there is some share where there is like a plentiful truth. There is like some truth to that, right? Whatever you're focusing on, it contributes to like how your reality is shifting, because like whatever you're focusing on, then your soul's gonna go and investigate and work towards that, so it can do something and act with that, so it can make it happen eventually, perhaps with the fate of the gods, right? Because the fate of the gods, that's the other 50-50 of the natural law of things. It's like 50-50. What if everything is fair and unfair simultaneously on a different natural esoteric dream world of a 50-50? And in the surface level matrix, it's 99% unfair, just because that's how the game's calibrated, and it's 1% fair because that 1% is like that's the setting of how the surface level matrix sits on the natural matrix, right, respectively. So and maybe I shouldn't have said that, but like I'm doing this for the bigger picture. So if I remind myself I'm doing it for the bigger picture, then I transcend all of these lower irrelevant thoughts of just random passing judgment that's going to have some type of like expiration date, right? And that's some real energetic shit. It's like the original energetic shit, right? So chapter 2 of the Tao, everyone knows the deuce right here, the deuce, like the mother of, like, you know, the moon. Vedic astrology says the moon is like it's the road to the soul, right? It's the path to the soul, right? Because it's its own paradox of like that energy kind of just being a standard kind of energy for us to kind of like keep going, right? It's like the moon energy is it's its own mystery, right? And, you know, shout out to like just like a deeper open source of things, because obviously like 20 years from now, when all of these video game companies on Earth find out there's something greater than them, just in a different perhaps galaxy, because we're all idealizing and fancifulizing the idea of the multiverse and different timelines. So if we're fancifulizing different timelines of the multiverse, then eventually in the future we're coming to engage and interact with such different timelines, us, the individual human beings. And now as we're going into the future, that is more or less coming subjective to an objective reality. And obviously seeing the original open source, ratio codes to just all that which is subjective and objective, because that shit, like, you don't have the accurate timestamps of where that came from. And since you don't have that, whatever you're claiming to be the original truth isn't necessarily the original truth, because you're not verifying that. So there's a spiritual solution to transcend all debates, is what I'm saying. So chapter 2 of the DAO, everyone knows. And obviously meta mindset, there's some public stuff on meta mindset in like 2018 that already like tipped it off, started a whole different game, or connected a different game from 2018 to 2012, right? And then 2018 to 2012 back to 2017 reborn, and then just kind of coming out of the muck 2016, kind of like I have my own like piece of shit self, beliefs that I'm dealing with from me to me. And yeah, maybe the universe sometimes might tell me I'm a piece of shit. And if the universe tells me I'm a piece of shit, okay, then that's what it is. I'm taking constructive criticism on a different intuitive level that they don't like. And once you do that, you're taking a different esoteric self accountability, and then your general soul grows. It's contributing to a different game of fucking soul. It's contributing to something beyond the matrix gradually, right? Eventually, or maybe not. So we're connecting the harmony. So we're not polarizing with just one planet and thinking one planet is just the fucking reality. And now we're kind of quote unquote having some type of energy act of sacrificing, end quote. We're too polarized in the distorted shades of something that we're calling a quote unquote archonic being, end quote. And obviously it's a nuanced thing when saying these types of words. Shout out to the advanced intelligence of the predecessors. Chapter 2, everyone knows. See, that's the thing. Everyone in a particular niche dream world, that moment of, temporary enlightenment. Excuse those. So chapter 2 and chapter 1, that's a big pause right there. It's a big pause because that could mean so many different things. That's actually might be one of the natural feminine code thingies right there. The code solvers is the 2 and the 1 are neighbors. 1, 2, 2, 1, 21, 12, naturally, and that being like a feminine framework for how a baby is born, right? Because 2 is coming from 1, and 1 is ultimately bearing something. So a different 2 of different things, of different ones, of 1 that goes back to different ones, and that different one's going back to different 1 going back to a different 1, and then that 1 is ultimately making infinite 2s, right? Infinite division, infinite duplication, 2 out of 1, 2 back to 1, being different infinite neighbors, right? And trust me, like 2017 underground, I already like your AI is not accurate. That's what I'm trying to say in the most standard, simple way I could try to explain it. That's why there's an incompletion with the AI. So I'm being precise with the detail of this shit. So that's why there's a natural esoteric feminine reason where there's a stream of intelligence that will go beyond AI in different facets of the real natural multiverse timeline shit. Not the fucking surface level artificial multiversal timeline shit. It's not that. Because the original Veda, the pure Vedas will transcend all of that shit, respectively, originally. But that's the thing. It's like there's a gap. There's a gap of understanding the action. There's a gap of understanding the directions. There's a gap of just comprehending it. There's a gap of intelligence. There's a gap of pure God's enlightenment, which is trying to purify the soul as much as you can with your karma, right? So on some real other shit, on some original trendsetter shit, on the 2025 music game, it's just taking notes and accumulated notes from like old ass shit. Because there's so much work that's already been done. Eventually shit will plateau. So chapter 2, and I'm just saying it raw with it, boss with it, dog with it, boss hog dog with it, bull terrier Rottweiler with it, pit bull red nose, scruffy Yorkie, English bull, English wiener. Like, yo, Everyone knows. When everyone knows beauty is beauty, this is bad. When everyone knows good is good, this is not good. So being and non-being produce each other. Difficulty and ease complement each other. Difficulty and ease complement each other. Long and short shape each other. High and low contrast with each other. Voice and echoes conform to each other. Before and after go along with each other. So sages manage effortless service and carry out unspoken guidance. It's just there. It's just that's it. 30 days. You got 30 days just to reset and refluctuate, especially in this Aries new moon, new spring cleaning season. We just barely kicked off spring. We can't let the Delulu energies of random Pisces, Neptunian energies get us out of the natural clock of just like being a different type of natural here and now. What am I saying? So sages manage effortless service and carry out unspoken guidance. So it's like there's something that could be helping us. All beings work without exception. Chapter 2 of the Tao. Act without presumption and do not dwell on success. Then by this very non-dwelling, success will not leave. So chapter 2 is powerful of the Tao. Success will not leave if you do not dwell on success. Do your best attempt to get to work, to find your job, your life's purpose, or whatever, whatever that is. For you to have a life purpose, that's a miracle in itself, right? It's like people like don't see the simplest things in life are free, like just for us to like kind of communicate, just for us to say hi, just for us to keep going, just for us to like see that the darkest days that we could have, they too shall pass, and that's like totally like the moon is like more flexible in and out of the human being, because the human being could be subject to harsh emotions, right? Just traversing through its own trek. Your deep esoteric responsibility. You came to be a human. Now take responsibility of the general human's path, right? The human's path of coming out of insect, right? And going towards some type of quote unquote context, quote unquote, of a demon / vampire, end quote, which is just kind of like something more natural of just being a template of a being, of a creature, right? The diamond body, the daemon, and then that has different shades where the daemon can be distorted casually in a different esoteric math of it, right? Different things adding up and accumulating to make the mutation be particular in what it is, the particular differentiation of the data, the particular differentiation of the data infrastructures, the particular differentiation of the IT arrangements nationally, and having different locations of that general arrangement, the particular differentiation of all the different creatures, spirit and not spirit and human alike, interacting with buildings and without buildings on some advanced human design shit. So there's proof that we could transcend the art. So you know what trumps this whole fucking AI race is proving the spiritual intelligence of God that goes beyond that. That transcends effortlessly, naturally. For us to prove a higher universal intelligence that literally goes beyond this ballpark time range of AI existing in the 2025 to existing in the 2030s to existing in the 2035s to existing in the 2040s to existing in the 2045s. See, there's a higher intelligence delivering that shit that transcends different epochs of time ranges of AI, right? So chapter 2 of the Tao, the moon energy will always be its own particular unique mechanism of the moon having an energy that's flexible outside of the human and within the human. The moon is for everybody. So we're learning how we're working with our own moon and how the human can be subject to harsh conditions, right? Generally just on the path of human to the archons of life, right? The different planets. So chapter 2, the moon, the Tao, everyone knows this shit in a different fucking context of a different dream, right? But we forget that we know it because we're participating with this particular level of the third to sixth dimensional physical matrix, or fifth dimensional. Yeah, let's say fifth, just to have a different rudimentary effortless spoken, like guiding for like piece of treatise of treatments of verbalizations of like whatever you're etiquetting and whatever you're professing as some type of like, you know, new audience or oranium, oratorium, auditorium, elditorium, slelditorium, nelditorium, melditorium, clelditorium, echoing, complementing each other. The Tao, everyone knows, when everyone knows beauty is beauty, this is bad. Because beauty, so what is that one? I need a pause for that one. When everyone knows beauty is beauty, this is bad. So we're pretend, like, for some reason, like, just naturally lies are coming up. So when everyone knows beauty is beauty, this is bad. When everyone knows good is good, this is not good. So being and non-being produce each other. Difficulty and ease complement each other. Long and short shape each other. Long and short shape each other. Build each other. High and low contrast with each other. The pains of life, the pleasures of life, the passionless state with life, right? Seeing what is like, what has seen it all before, the nature of just, you know, just like a particular type of human experiment, because this is the human experiment. The last 6,000 years to the last 200 years, it's the human experiment, quote unquote, human, you know, designing, end quote. High and low contrast with each other. Voice and echoes conform to each other. Before and after go along with each other. So sages manage effortless service and carry out unspoken guidance. All beings work without exception. If they live without possessiveness, act without presumption, and do not dwell on success, then by this very non-dwelling, success will not leave. Now I'm going to go to chapter 1, just get right into it. Chapter 1 of Chaos, Gaia, and Eros. So here it is. Here's like something of the real, you know, starting it, right? So the world according to Grok. Now we're taking out the lighting, kind of dim it out. Now change the tone. Change the tone. So now we're changing the tone, right? So the tone is getting changed. We grok something. Parentheses, an archaeological find, artifact, artwork, text, poem, letter, natural process, and so on, end parentheses. We grok something by a cycle of observing, thinking, poking, and once again observing. Double Schrodinger's cat. This is not the same as explaining it, representing it, or translating it. The word grok is a translation of the technical term verstechen, meaning to understand. The grok circle. The world according to Grok, former neighbor Robert Heinlein, and replaced it with the word Grok. Well, what I call the Grok circle is similar to dialectical process of thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, and it constitutes the basic process and hermeneutical thought called the hermeneutical circle. Understanding this spiral may be crucial for our own evolution as we struggle with the challenges of post-mortem planetary society. During their seeming differences, the discovery of the wheel around 4000 BC and the chaos revolution that has begun in the 1970s are related and significant events in history. This metamorphosis is a canonical example of a bifurcation in history. After the advent of the wheel around 4000 BC, and the related urban revolution, natural philosophy began a process of disintegration into numerous specialties. In the festival, the priest obtained the blessing of the goddess for the common welfare. The Greek word physis means what grows. We will be satisfied here in the written historical records of the European tradition, especially the ancient Greek literature, the Alexandrian Hermetic corpus, the Alexandrian Hermetic corpus, the Neoplatonic writings, Plotinus, Porphyry, Iamblichus, Porphyry, surviving in the early Christian Gnostic, Sufi, and Kabbalist communities, propelled toward Italy along with the expulsion of the Jews and Moors from Spain in 1492. Throughout the voyage, physiology maintained its integrity as the unified science of mind and nature, although there were some losses of essential branches. Lull was a natural philosopher in the Middle Ages. When the Jewish, Christian, and Muslim societies were harmonically intermixed, he had an important influence on the Renaissance Neoplatonists. So Mercury being in the Aries area, what that means is, maybe respectively, like just kind of like the education system is being more geared naturally by some grace effort from Mercury being in Aries. What Mercury in Aries means is like we could be focusing on just general consciousness of self, right? Like the spiritual industry in a whole different natural context, I guess. It's like the spiritual market, it's like booming, right? Respectively. And what that means is like a lot of work has been done with, a secret, just just the secret of the cosmos, right? Has been like kind of dawned on the earth. And a lot of people have unique journeys within just like working with consciousness casually and unconsciously just since around 2012, right? And from that 2012, we've built up from that revolution of consciousness from 2012 to 2025. So there's something of a 12.5, 13.5 years of working with just like new consciousness, right? So the consciousness industry, it's all booming too. It's like abundant within the knowledge of how it's teaching humans and being like and aiding new solutions. So like right now, like Mercury being in Aries, it's just like it has a lot to do with just like human metamorphosis, right? So the whole like that human metamorphosis, maybe in a different natural tone, it could be in just a different chapter of it or channel of it. It could be influencing the quote unquote general stock markets, right? End quote, because that energy of the activity of the human evolving is doing something to the planet. And guess what? We're using primarily as the hardware. It's the human, right? So us using the human, it's like it's the most relative thing before the quote unquote stock markets and just a different natural example. So since we need the human being to drive ourselves, and that human being is like changing in a different product, and we're like, we're kind of like quote unquote in a different natural branding perspective, we're selling ourselves. Then as we're selling ourselves, it's like we are like, it's like people are their own like stock market. It's like the meme coins, just for an example, right? It's like we are our own product in a standard natural way, And let me just read chapter 1 of this book. The physicalist vitalist split. The physicalists believed that matter was dead. The vitalists maintained that life was maintained by a non-physical life force or soul. So that's the thing we're investigating right there. So I could pause right there. And I'm on chapter 15 of the Chaos, Gaia, and Eros book, right? So I'm on page 15. So I'm on page 15. Oh, shout out to the original galaxy, for real though. And I'm saying for real because that's going to cut off the inaccurate fake replications. And I'm just saying it just because I'm just on a different mission. You know? So now I'm just going to read it. Maybe I'll go on this side. Lowell's tree of knowledge is shown in figure 1.2. So if someone could pull up figure 1.2 casually. Following the Renaissance, physiology disintegrated into distinct specialties. This split, culminating in the debates of Newton and Leibniz in 1760s, still dominates the growth of science. Then came the branching of physicalism and vitalism with the synthesis of urea in 1828. Here's the book. If anybody, so this is pretty much it. So this is in a different channel. This is kind of like chapter 1, or this is like episode 1, because I'm reading chapter 1, right? And chapter 2 of the Tao, in chapter 1 of the Chaos, it's feeling the Tao, and then going to the localized school district, you know, Mercury and Saturn line, and then seeing there's a Venus and Mars war play happening on Mercury and Saturn land. Shout out to the predecessors. And this is like beyond, you know, and here's his tree. Standard 7 right there. There's a standard 7. So within that standard 7, figure 1.1, the tree of perennial philosophy. Figure 1.2, the tree of Ramon. And obviously Ramon could be pronounced in different ways. The Egyptian would probably pronounce Ramon as Ramon, but in Mexican Spaniard culture, Ramon is Ramon. And obviously that name goes, you know, it expands to a deeper time than the human, right? So the vitalist maintained that life was maintained by a non-physical life force or soul. The Renaissance, which included magic, astrology, and alchemy, departed from vitalism and virtually died. Then came the birth of organicism from physicalism, an attempt to regain the advantages of vitalism without its life force. And from organicism came holism, general systems theory, and recently general evolution theory. Soon after this branching, Hermeticism, the magical Alexandrian heritage fundamental to the Renaissance, which included magic, astrology, and alchemy, departed from vitalism and virtually died. Meanwhile, after Goethe, and after biology was converted to physicalism, hermeneutics split off from vitalism, trying to keep the spirit present within the social sciences. Social psychologist Kurt Lewin's contact with the hermeneutical tradition of Dilthey in Berlin led to his development of social psychology and action research, which branched from hermeneutics, courageously carrying out the hermeneutic program in the practical context of social psychology. This is the goal of aerodynamics, which will be discussed later in the book. We may regard the evolution of consciousness and the growth of this tree as a manifestation of morphic resonance, or in this context, cognitive resonance. Thus, a group, circle, school, community of scholars may be modeled as a vibratory field, that is, a group of oscillators with some degree of mutual influence or interaction. Further, Further, we may extend the Renaissance concept to a field of chaotic systems, as it is known that regular patterns emerge from these fields of chaos. In this way, the mechanics of resonance may function in a Grok circle, supporting the understanding of the history of consciousness and the evolution of culture. Cultural evolution may thus be envisioned in the spirit of general evolution theory as an autopoietic, self-organizing pattern formation process in a vibratory field. All who wish to participate may do so just by paying attention and interacting. we may think of three similar processes of morphogenesis. Geological forms evolve in the geosphere of earth, ocean, and air. Life forms evolve in the biosphere of all living matter. Thought forms evolve in the noosphere of all consciousness minds, and noosphere being a Mayan term for the dream world and the ancestors, right? Respectively. Grokking in Science, page 18. The harmony of these spheres interacting in resonance. The harmony of these spheres interacting in resonance constitutes a model for the planetary mind, which may itself be a resonance phenomena in which noogenesis is directed by nature herself. It may even be nature herself. So here's the book, the Grok circle or spiral applied to the history of science is the basis of one of the main branches of the philosophy of science. Action research consists of analysis, fact-finding, or evaluation, and then repetition of this whole circle of activities. Indeed, a spiral of such circles. The spiral of circles may be interpreted as observation, analysis, experiment, theory, intervene, explain, or participate model. Each arc of the cycle is very complex and has an extensive literature. The model and then the subtext on the side column subtext. Side column subtext paragraph. Back to the Grok circle. Pause. The model and the observation are linked within the Grok circle. Major shifts in the model, called paradigm shifts, are experienced as revolutions in archaeology, the sciences, the arts, and social organization as revisions of history and so on, and psychological pattern recognition through social media analysis, psychological group think tanks, because people have done so much different things with psychology. 2010 shit, So let me finish page 18. The concept of model varies through an enormous spectrum of meanings. Here we are dealing with attempts to circumscribe mimesis, or cognitive strategies of representation in a spectrum from larger to smaller representations. The word observation similarly has its own spectrum of meanings. The spectrum of participation or involvement. Observation is done in the ambiance of a model, while the model is created in the context of an observation strategy. Hence our understanding of the world around us. For example, the text may be read under the sway of a theory of interpretation or model. In this way, we have evolution and understanding, which compromises grokking. Major shifts in the model, called paradigm shifts, are experienced as revolutions in archaeology, the sciences, the arts, and social organization, and revisions of history and so on. Scientism, side column subtext. Side column paragraph. Scientism is the antithesis of a Grok view of the history of science. To the disciple of scientism, the models become reality. So people are just fixated on just the artificial hype of things. Scientism is the antithesis of a Grok view. What is a Grok view? Back to the Grok circle. Major shifts in the model, called paradigm shifts, are experienced as revolutions, living through revolutions, respectively of archaeology, sciences in the natural way, in my parentheses, the arts and social organization as revisions of history and so on. So scientism, page 19. In the dogma of scientism, a particular model becomes identified with its target system in nature, but to the disciple of scientism, the model becomes reality. The conflict between the pragmatic approach of hermeneutics, vitalism, and the dogmatic stance of scientism, logicism, physicalism is a fundamental force in the history of science. In the next chapter, we will turn to mythogenesis, the Grok circle on the top, simulation. There's the Grok circle. So on the bottom of the Grok circle is observation. On the left and the right, something of a different yin and yang to the top and the bottom kind of being in the background based on its lack of, emphasized bold italics. So on the side, it's the two boxes on the side of the grok circle is the dynamical model, which we've already defined the dynamical model. And the left is the target system. And look at the target system. It's something like a Rubik's Cube. It's something like a society matrix. So the target system is some type of experiment matrix, right? And on the right is the dynamical model, the soul matrix. So I'm trying to understand the original open source of it, because this is something of nature, right? And the top is the simulation. So the simulation, the light is being interfused and connected to make some type of projector matrix on the top. And then the bottom is the observation, some type of lack, some type of dream world, some type of, being like no thing with God or something like that. So it explains it in this book. So this is the Grok Circle, this is a really deep book. So shout out to Abrahamov or whatever. So the Grok Circle, we will turn to mythogenesis, and that's the end of chapter 1. Let's see. Could I do chapter 2? Let's do chapter 2. Let's do 2 chapters just because I'm on a different flow. And the first word I see on chapter 2, don't say it. SCUC. SCUC. Campus. So I'm gonna skip this. I'm gonna skip the first page of this, of the chapter, because in the first page of the chapter, it seems like he's going back and he's doing he's accounting a personal kind of journey or something. But I'm gonna read it. So chapter 2, cognitive maps and mythogenesis. Actually, I'm just gonna skip that part. I'm gonna skip that part because it's I'm just here for the info of it, So chapter 2, page 21, Grok evolution. The book is Chaos, Gaia, Eros. A chaos pioneer uncovers the 3 great streams of history: chaos, Gaia, Eros. Deliteralizes history so we see it not only as a sequence of events, but as a flow of ideas and cultural myths. Shout out to you. Thank you for resonating. Chapter 1 described the hermeneutical circle as the motor of understanding and the fuel for the evolution of consciousness. Here we arrive at cognitive psychology and the sociology of knowledge, subjects that attempt to grokking. History and myth. Myth and history are different approaches to our understanding of ourselves. Myth is the mirror opposite of history. Myth is not the story of the ego of a civilization, but the story of the soul. Both history and myth are seen through an image, paradigm, theory, or cognitive process. The deeper the past, the more vague is of our understanding of it. A theory of cognitive maps attempts to learn the imaging process through the disciplines of anthropology, sociology, and psychology, the social sciences, of course. Opportunity. This application provides an opportunity for the mathematical theory of dynamical systems to enter the hermeneutical circle, as we will see in a later chapter. The side column subtext has a diagram, figure 2.1. Gestalt psychology, side column diagram, 2 smart rats. Maze 3 of Lashley's smart rats. So, and I think I had a dream listening to some other discourse of rats, because it sounds familiar. Someone else was talking about rats. So whoever else was talking about rats, I'm there's a resonance there, And the rats, they go deep. They're in the sewer, right? Ninja Turtles, they're really in that shit. Gestalt theory began in Germany in 1912 with a paper by Max Wertheimer. Gestalt also related to vitalism, a view of nature in which a vital split or field infuses all matter. Wolfgang Kohler's book about his experiments on perception and problem solving with apes, 1913 through 17, appeared in 1917, and Kurt Kafka's book on the mind was published in 1924. The current burgeoning interest in maps and myths can be seen as a renaissance of the Gestalt movement. Universities have their branches such as psychology, and the branches have branches such as rat psychology. This form of memory is called a strip map. One day in the 1920s, K.S. Lashley, the pioneer rat man, saw two of his subjects, after having learned the maze, pushing back the cover near the starting box, climbing out, and running directly across the top of the goal box, where they climbed down into the box again and ate. More sophisticated mazes. Sailing canoes, side column, the concept of culture, side column. Malinowski, 1922, side column, highlight of a person. Malinowski, 1922, the concept of culture. My argument will be brief, cavalier, and dogmatic. I am not myself a clinician or a social psychologist. What I'm going to say must be considered. Therefore, simply as in the nature of a rat psychologist's ratiocinations offered free. After this modest disclaimer, Tolman concluded a 1948 lecture entitled, quote, Cognitive Maps in Rats and Men, end quote, with 3 applications of the cognitive map concept to human psychology. Later, generations of rat people have elaborated the cognitive mapping function and physiology, locating the actual map in the hippocampus. Wow. Further applications to human psychology have been proposed. The culture of these people was explored in the pioneering work of the Polish anthropologist Bronislaw Malinowski. The islanders like to go sailing for fun, even at night after a party, to a neighboring island about 100 miles distant. This is only partially true. Thomas Gladwin in 1970 showed that they had also integrated the strip maps into a global spatial maps of the South Pacific and the celestial sphere. Wow. The concept of culture. The next phase in the hermeneutical exegesis of our human culture history is the extension of the cognitive map concept from a single cognitive process, such as spatial cognition, to the entire knowledge base of an individual. Bronislaw Malinowski, a social anthropologist teaching at the London School of Economics and Political Science, worked with the Trobriand Islanders and became widely known and influential after publication of his classics, Argonauts of the Western Pacific in 1922. Along with the structural anthropologist A.R. Radcliffe Brown, he introduced the word culture in the sense of the systematic body of learned behavior which is transmitted from parents to children. Benedict, 1934, Bateson, 1935, aerodynamics. Derivatives. The systematic body of learned behavior which is transmitted from parents to children, and then like reshaped by spiritual predecessors, most respectively. In her best-selling text, Patterns of Culture, written in 1934, Ruth Benedict, 1887 to 1948, made the culture concept more widely known. Later, she introduced the term social synergy, a measure for the integrity of a cognitive map. Another early step in the extension of the cognitive map concept to cultures was taken by Gregory Bateson, an anthropologist influenced by Malinowski. Later, in his classic book, Naven, recounting his fieldwork with the Iatmo people of New Guinea, he adapted Ruth Benedict's concept of ethos to encompass the expression of a culturally standardized system of organization of the instincts and emotions of the individual. In 1939, Bateson learned of the work of Louis Fry Richardson, 1881 and 1953, the founder of arms race models and politicometrics. Politicometrics. So there's metrics of politics called politicometrics. And I don't think I pronounced that one correctly. In 1939, Bateson learned of the work of Louis Fry Richardson, the founder of the arms race models and politometrics. And in 1949, he connected these concepts into a dynamically evolving picture of ethos. In 1972, his essays on this subject were collected into a volume, Steps to an Ecology of Mind, the classic of general systems theory and cybernetics as applied to anthropology. Wow. Aerodynamics, a derivative of 19th century hermeneutics and vitalism in the line of Dilthey, as described in Chapter 1. General systems theory was developed in Canada by Ludwig von Bertalanffy in the 1940s. Cybernetics is a similar theory of systems which emerged in the context of engineering and technology at about the same time, 1940s. Similar theories of systems, cybernetics, context of engineering and technology, and then, respectively, quote unquote, the I. Complex dynamical systems theory, CDS theory, is an extension of the mathematical theory of dynamical systems in the spirit of Henry Poincaré. It is based on general systems theory and cybernetics, revised and extended by the new theories of chaos and bifurcation. It provides the modeling strategy for a new understanding of complex systems, of social systems, and of history. The application of this modeling strategy to the social sciences is the basis for new developments, including mathematical anthropology, mathematical sociology, mathematical psychology, and so on. So the mathematical, it already has a different natural algorithm per the algorithms of mathematical application, dynamical system processing, data warehouse infrastructure storage systems. Collectively, we call these new developments aerodynamics, referring to the study of social behavior using dynamical models. We will explore the meaning and reasons for this term in the last chapter of this book. Bolding, 1956. The image not only makes society continually remakes the image. Bateson attended seminars of Malinowski in London as a graduate student at Oxford, and later he attended the Macy conferences at which the cybernetic revolution got underway. Kenneth Boulding was also a participant in these meetings and became one of the founding fathers of general systems theory. And hopefully the battery's all right. Pause, edit. During a year in the retreat at the Center for Advanced Study in the Behavioral Sciences at Stanford, California, 1954 to 1955, Stanford, California, Behavioral Science Advanced Studies, he produced a monograph called, quote unquote, The Image, end quote, which, as he says, title subject, The Image, which, as he original open source, which, as he says, was dictated in uninterrupted composition, end quote, quote unquote, end quote, and published in 1956. This is a visionary synthesis of general systems theory and the social sciences, economical, political, social, and historical. Its basic concepts are the image, which is the cognitive map or knowledge structure of the individual, and the message, which produces a change in the image. So knowledge of self changes you, and working with that and either being, esoterically, scientifically toxic with that or not. He speaks explicitly of the image of man, the image of the history of the universe, and of public images shared by a society. The evolution of society and the public image under the influence of messages is described hermeneutically. The image not only makes society continually remakes the image. Culture is the exfoliation of an image as germ, the unfolding of a cognitive map in its role as a seed of society. Artigiani, 1987. Recently, so let me rewind real quick. So the image dictated in, this is a visionary synthesis of general systems theory, the social sciences. So I guess he's saying it on a collective, on a general collective level, right? The visionary synthesis of general systems theory collectively, right, in that context, and the seeing how math fluctuations happen in social sciences, economical, political, social, and historical, and those then influence casually, energetically, they have to influence some type of different change of different contexts of this quote unquote stock market, end quote, most respectively. Original natural understanding of that though, because obviously it's what are you saying? Well, I'm I'm seeing how things affect each other, and I'm reading like a structured textbook that is telling me how we came about, you know? Culture is the exfoliation of an image as germ, the unfolding of a cognitive map in its role as a seed of society. Recently, Robert Artigiani has updated cultural evolution theory by connecting the cognitive map or public image to general evolution theory. Chapter 2 of Chaos, Gaia, and Eros. Cognitive maps are set of symbols representing physical phenomena, people, and procedures that group sequences of facts and ideas governing particular behavior sets around values, with each behavior set playing the role of a cultural gene. The symbols in cognitive maps originate in experience and are tested against their environment. These symbols are communicated more or less completely to all members of a society, and through the emotive effects of values, they guide action. Through media like language, myth, tools, art, ritual, and simple imitation, cognitive maps communicate the information characterizing a particular human group between individuals and generations. So we're being tested with the different time, groups of people, like how we're relating to different types of people throughout time in the matrix. That's a secret natural test, right? Is how we could really be part of the bigger circle of life. Have some type of professional, 5%, 5%, it's not all a free for all. 5%, there's some type of structure. 5%, there's esoteric rules to the game, So that's how I'm interpreting it as of right now. Let me reread that. Through media like language, myth, tools, art, ritual, and simple imitation, cognitive maps communicate the information characterizing a particular human group between individuals and generations. So now I understand it newly. A group of beings are observing individuals and the change of the general evolution of things. Thus, as each new generation is educated in the meanings of a culture's cognitive map, pause, it acquires the traditions of its society and learns to behave in manners largely undistinguishable from those of its ancestors. Side column subject. The hermeneutic circle again. This brings us to the present and yet another view of our history. Oh, and I'm gonna finish chapter 2 and then I'm done. So I'm gonna close the video really soon, probably 5 minutes ish. The hermeneutic circle. This brings us to the present and yet another view of our history. Mythography is a way of looking at the past as if it were unrelated to the present. However, if you read about one of the characters in several different piles, you find there are many inconsistencies because the references come from different times and places. Mythogenesis, the hermeneutic circle again. We continually interpret and reinterpret the past. We do the same with the future, projecting forward our fantasies and eventually receiving feedback in the form of certainties or uncertainties in the present. And that's a personal one. Not good, not bad. Hermeneutics, figure 2.2 diagram, the double cycle of a cognitive map in dream time. Dream time being the base subject, the center being the model system present, just the general soul matrix and nature matrix. And then on the right and left, it's saying target system future, target system past, model system present, hermeneutics, dream time. So target system future, that's totally subjective and objective towards a nation's intelligence. So hermeneutics, it's a subjective way of how different soul groups are adapting with nature and exploring nature within the astrology of things. Because the astrology of things, it's Mercury, Saturn, Venus, and then Mars, barely realizing he has to deal and juggle with so many different stuff in the material reality. He goes in and out of controlled rage, right? Because there's the detriment part of Mars is lack of control. Because there's a detriment side to the planets. If you're using the planets in a polarized way and you flop with them, then the detriment Mars that you might attract as some type of moment, Mars is going like in that surface level. He's going through a lot of different surface level challenges. So if he's out of balance, he's gonna like there's gonna be an explosion, right? So detrimental Mars explosion, the feelings, the rate, some type of genetic rage got the best of you, right? And now Mars has to like be one with the surface level competition, not good, not bad, and just in an esoteric to non-esoteric way. And now Mars is dealing with Mercury, Saturn, and Venus. So that's the whole astrology within me reading this book. It's focusing on the surface level shit, like Mercury, Saturn, Venus, and Mars, and then reading the educational stuff, Mercury, and then there's like a whole Saturn, like do your duty kind of thing. And then Venus and Mars, we have to like kind of just do the general competition, Mars. And then Venus, we have to do the general self-care, self-love, self-taking. So that, and seeing those surface level energies, they dictate sociological human behavior, nations behavior. The psychology of nations is being broken down. This is the advanced intelligence from the predecessor since 2012. Let me finish chapter 2. Another style of analysis was used by Jane Ellen Harrison, a classical scholar at the turn of the century in England. Here in 50 BC, the idea of the myth evolving within a culture and leaping the boundaries from one culture to another was already apparent and present. Myths are always changing. There is no static myth or Orpheus. The great master of this view, of course, is the late Joseph Campbell, the hero's journey, right? So the standard psychological 1900 hero's journey within the astrology of that, them having a unique astrology in the 1900s, and Joseph Campbell and and obviously all the other great beings in that time, they were subject to their nation's psychology, and their nation's psychology having national business esoteric in the 1900s, and how all the nations were a different character in the 1900s, right? As we have said, the hermeneutic circle in which target system and model are connected into a cycle. As we have said, the hermeneutic circle in which target system and model are connected into a cycle, a kind of commodious vicus of recirculation provides the motor for the evolution of consciousness. So vicus, commodious vicus. The word is vicus, not vicious, not vicarious, vicus. So look up that word. A kind of commodious vicus of recirculation. We do the same with the future, projecting forward our fantasies and eventually receiving feedback in the form of certainties or uncertainties in the present. We can thus think of a second hermeneutic circle between our present dialogue and our future. Figure 2.2 is a graphic for an individual cognitive map, or ICM. This map is evolving. So our cognitive map in the present moment, beyond original open source, map in the present has grown from some germ in the past, which may be represented as a point. We have this double ice cream cone figure as a model for the ICM and its history shown in figure 2.3. At some point in time, when many individuals are sharing the same map, a collective cognitive map or a cultural cognitive map, or CCM, may begin, which repeats the same process from a new germ. Figure 2.3 and 2.4. And shout out to the so you could screenshot that. End of chapter 2. And I skim read through it, obviously. So figure 2.3, the gyre of a cognitive map in its real-time evolution. So real-time cognitive maps. And the evolution of a CCM from an ICM. So in figure 2.4, we have in one figure the ICM and the CCM. Clock time or real time is represented as motion to the right in the figure. This is a slightly different but equivalent figure revealed to Yeats by his wife through automatic writing. Summary of Chapter 2. We apply the Grok circle idea. Okay. Chapter 3. Chapter 3 is different. This is the end of Chapter 2. We apply the Grok circle idea to the efforts of our species to understand itself and its place in the universe. We apply the Grok circle idea to the efforts of our species to understand itself and its place in the universe. The concept of cognitive maps emerges within a hierarchy of models for consciousness. In any given culture, cognitive maps, both individual and collective, are in a continual process of evolution, of course. Cultural history and myth are aspects of the evolving collective cognitive map. Cultural history and myth are aspects of the evolving collective cognitive map. So I don't downplay the myth or the cultural history. It's a unique type of energy work. Social transformations or bifurcations in the dynamical theory of Robert Artigiani are sudden jumps, catastrophes, paradigm shifts, and parentheses in this process of evolution. In the cybernetic view of Gregory Bateson and Kenneth Boulding, or the general systems approach of Ludwig von Bertalanffy, this model provides a new theory of history. In the next chapter, we will survey the history of history. So tomorrow, I'm gonna I gave a clue on how the astrology could be at play here, and tomorrow I'm gonna read. I'm either gonna go back to this book tomorrow, or I might go back to Taking Care of Business tomorrow because I have to focus on work, right? So I might just do the standard alternation of the Chaos DAO series and the Taking Care of Business series, the original open source business synergistics series, with China advanced logistic accuracy verification. So we're going to add that advanced Chinese authenticity verification of its starting of original open source. So I finished chapter 1 and 2 of this book. Tomorrow I might come back to this book, but I might go to Taking Care of Business. And that concludes today's episode. Thank you very much, guys.